Let's get to it. I hope everybody is doing good tonight. First presentations, really liked it. I really see myself as more of a entertainment break in between the more serious talks. So here we go. I'm going to tell you 3 stories tonight, short stories, so about 20 minutes total. They are completely made up, except I did participate in all of them. I will not be pointing out the lessons learned in those tales. That is up to you. I just tell the tales. You look for the meaning in them. And let's go into the first tale. First tale starts with a phone call. A serious mobile operator calls some bright-eyed young guys. Ring, ding, ding. Small step back about the mobile operators. There's an interesting fact about the mobile operators that they are offering identical service or close to identical service to each other, sometimes even on the same cell towers. And then the question is, how do they compete, actually? And they compete on a couple of things, marketing, but interestingly, they compete on billing features. And that's why you see crazy things like, hey, for every 10 incoming calls, you will get 1 free minute of calls after midnight, but only on weekends, and then 50 megabytes during the week. Stuff like that comes out of the fact that they are competing with their billing features, sometimes to the absurdity. So, ring-a-ding-ding, hey, bright-eyed guys, can you build me, the serious network, serious billing operator, can you build me a billing system? I need a new one. Bright-eyed kids, being young and brave, say, oh, of course we can. We'll build it from scratch, all the bells and whistles you want to do, any tech stack you want. When do you need it? 9 months, no problem. I mean, you can make a baby in 9 months. In my case, 2 babies. So let's go. Let's do this. Long story short, they actually did it. Latvians have a saying of "cepuri nost" to these guys. They actually pulled this off. They spent a couple of months at least at the end in the office, working at night, sleeping there on a couch. Did get their champagne at the end. All in all, took them 3 years to deliver and launch that. Yeah. So, what's then, when the dust settles, what's the sausais atlikums? Were they happy with this? Well, yeah, they had this great project, which they did. I mean, they did overspend a bit, but hey, who's counting? But on the other hand, they're now kind of stuck in this rather stable, but honestly quite boring job. You are maintaining a one-client system on an exciting tech, and because it's a one-client system, there is only one client who is paying for the features you're building. And if you're trying to save up for a Ferrari, then it's not that exciting anymore. They, of course, tried productizing this system and sell it to other customers to multiply the revenue. But if you build this huge system, like 3 years worth of building system, and you plan to do it in 9 months, then more than 2 years you are doing in a very rushed manner. And the first thing, obviously, you cut is the features. So like future productization enablement is the first thing to go. When you are that late behind the schedule, it's obvious there was none of that, so that failed quite miserably. And the kicker to the first story is the question, is the telco happy with this outcome? The client? Well, Yes and no again. They did get a tailor-made system for themselves, but by the time it was delivered, it was built on an old spec, on old tech. Both tech and spec were way back 3 years back. They were maybe kind of okay in case of tech, and were maybe chosen for reliability and stability. And most importantly, it's not really it's expensive for them to move forward, because they are the only guys who have to pay for any feature they want, any upgrade they want in tech. Every added feature, they bear the full cost of it. And at the same time, they cannot change the supplier easily, because there is nobody else in the world who could actually do something with the system. And those bright-eyed kids, they are honestly not that interested anymore, unless you keep throwing money at them, which is also not a very attractive option. So, hey, that's the first story for tonight. I give you 5 seconds now to write your questions and comments on the first story into chat, which I don't see now, but it's there, I think. So all right. Second story. It starts with a phone call. This time it's a rising star. It's an international startup. There is many millions of investments. There's very serious founders, and they have a revolutionary idea. By now, it's not a secret anymore. The idea is they are offering free phone calls on mobile in exchange for targeted ads. You provide some personal information, you tell them your preferences, they keep sending you targeted ads, you get free phone calls. What could go wrong? Who could not like free, right? Just to make sure, if we target teenagers, they for sure will like free. And because they are serious guys, they decided to go in big. They are going to set up a full-scale telco in one of the biggest European countries, half a dozen big-name partners, guys like Siemens, Nokia, Orange, doing parts of the system. Everything they built up to their own standards, high quality mobile provisioning, backend systems, billing systems, business support, ad serve, analytics. They got the top notch for that. And there were some A-line names in branding lined up already, like Nike, BMW, Nestle, already showing interest to do ads on this platform. So going in big. The solution that they built, how to put it, it was full blown, which is a polite way of saying bloated. I did promise to some people, so shout out to you guys. I will illustrate this with a small feature of this big solution. Tiny thing, not business essential at all, just a small brick in this huge wall, feature called Ad Pause. A feature that users can say, hey, don't send me ads for a week because I'm on vacation. Relatively small feature, but it does involve number of those systems: billing system, provisioning system, ad platform, analytics. So you have to involve several teams of people. You have to align everything. So all in all, when you count it together, it costed more than 50,000 euros to implement this feature. Both indirect, as in implement this feature, and then more painfully, that onwards from that moment, after you implement it, everything you do in any of those involved systems, you always have to remember, hey, but what about the ad pause? Do you remember what's happening with that? Did you remember to check for that? So that adds up, quite an expensive thing. So I think it shows a bit of the kind of a beast it was. So how did that go down? Well, The best and brightest, they of course build the system. Again, some of them I think are in the audience. Cepuri knows to them as well. System was built, system worked, it was nice, ideal. Except one tiny problem on the business side. Those stupid teenagers in this large European country, they didn't like the idea of getting ads in exchange for 3 minutes. It's a small thing, but this multi-million behemoth crashed into this reality after about a year of work and died. Nobody get Ferraris out of this one. This ad post feature that I mentioned that cost 50K, about 10 people actually ever used it. It's a nice feature to have. And the kicker to this story comes later, about a year or 2 years later. I learned there is a much smaller startup in a much smaller European company with a much, much, much smaller budget came up with the same business idea. They didn't have millions, so they just went to their local mobile operator and negotiated with them. Hey guys, let's us offer this additional service to your existing customers, so they can sign up, get some ads, get some 3 minutes. They're on their own. They just made their own ad delivery platform. Again, on the cheap. I think they made it on PHP. There's nothing against PHP, just say. But it was a cheap system. They, of course, the level of service they offered was not the same, right? But the lesson they learned was exactly the same as the big behemoth. And the grain of salt on the kicker, their total budget was about 50,000 euros, which was the same of this tiny feature in the big solution. So that was story number 2. Again, 5 minutes for you to write your questions there, I think. Edgars, you appeared on the screen. I don't hear what you're saying.
You were pointing right. So you are 5 minutes to tell next story?
Sure. And we go to the last story. Surprisingly, this again starts with a phone call. It is another startup. This time it has a much more modest budget, and it is a local startup. Technology-wise or problem-wise, it's actually more interesting for me, I guess. The problem, again, is not secret. It has to do with audio, so bear with me for a little bit. It turns out your devices, your audio playback devices, like headphones, like speakers, they are lying to you. They are not delivering you the sound that the music production engineer put into MP3 file in the studio. What you hear is not what they put in there. Music professionals know it. They struggle with it. They spend a lot of time, effort, money, audio treating their studios, buying super expensive speakers to get to this, what is known as flat sound standard in their studio. But even then, they know that consumers don't hear what they hear. So they end up going to their car, checking their mix, going to these speakers, checking their mix, putting on these headphones to check how it sounds, and trying to find a balance of something that sounds tolerable on all of them, even though none of you will get exactly what they actually put in there. So that is a problem. Solution to that problem is also not a secret, and I think it's not even patentable. The solution that this startup company came up with is that, hey, you can actually measure this coloration, as it's called, of a device or setup, and you can use the digital signal processing, which is a fancy name for computer, to correct for that. And in that sense, you get approximation of what the flat sound would coming out as an actual audible sound. So that's the startup in the third story. Good news, at the start of this story, the startup has already productized this idea successfully. They have built a pro-oriented, professional music producer-oriented product. They have launched it, sold it to tens of thousands of studios around the world. Studios are paying for them, using it, loving it, endorsing it. All of that is happening. Everything is good, except the professional music market is rather small. So even though product costs a couple of €100, still can't squeeze enough Ferraris out of it, because not enough of them. So where do Ferraris live? In the consumer market. Even though you can't charge hundreds per quality of sound, but there's so many of them. So let's go to consumer market. So the solution is simple. Let's bring flat sound to consumers. They will love it. We'll get our Ferraris. Because we live in a mobile world, of course, we'll build a mobile music player app. It's going to be a music player that plays songs exactly as in studio. Everybody loves it. We are rich. We realize for consumers, user experience is important, so it's going to be a very nice app. It's going to be nice. We're also a bit smarter now. We know the budget is tight. We should be cautious with that. So let's be smart. We build an app on a cross-platform network, in this case Qt, and we will save almost a half because we're not going to do development for Android and then for iPhone. So smart. How did that go? Right, 2 painful lessons after about half a year, which took to launch the app for consumer market. First, even though the pros love flat sound, turns out consumers do not. Go figure, but this company learned it the hard way, that it's the fact. Second, they learned there is no chance that a small startup from Latvia can build and launch a popular music app. You can build a good music app. It's never going to be popular in the age of Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube Music. So yeah, that's where the crash is. And then as a closing, this one is the kind of optimistic of the 3 stories. There is still a chance of some Ferraris. Luckily, these guys were smart enough to not spend everything on their first go, meaning just time, money, and investor goodwill. There is enough left to do the pivot and do a pivot from flat to personalized sound for consumers, but that's for another night story. But also importantly, another pivot in the direction of delivery. So from direct, hey, let's build a music player app, to the licensing technology integration. So we're going to build an SDK, and people could integrate this technology into their apps. Think button inside Spotify. So, and the salt on this wound in this story, that to integrate your technology into their apps, you have to write it into native Android and iOS. And this company ended up writing this code 3 times because they were afraid of writing it 2 times. I think I am almost on time. And this is it from me for my three stories. Now I will open up the chat and see if or Edgars, can you read me some questions if you're there?
You hear me?
Yes.
Seems that right now there are no questions. Wait a second. Okay.
Gatis Dukurs, yes. Basically, that could be one idea you can take from the stories. Research before starting. To be fair, those guys in all 3 stories, they were seasoned guys from serious companies. They did research, tons of it. Just remember that not always research equates reality in the market when you actually launch something. in a story about the ad delivery platform, there was tons of serious market research agencies that charged a lot for actually saying, yes, this is going to work. Still didn't.
Yeah, but it a bit sounds that they didn't read the Lean Startup book about testing hypothesis with MVP and so on.
To be fair, when it happened, the book wasn't out yet.
Okay.
But yes, but yes, that is true.
So Christoph's is asking, do you see Christoph's comment in a stage
Why
chat?
not write an EQ app instead? Good question, and it is something you can explore. EQ app is, well, two answers. One is you can write it for a desktop. You cannot really write it for a good EQ app for across platforms, even on Android, let alone iOS. Unfortunately, if it would be possible, that would be an easy way out. Unfortunately, we have a beta launch of a thing that approximates the Equalizer app for an Android, actually in app stores now, if you go there. But it's not perfect. It doesn't work for all apps. It doesn't work for games, and it's not available on Apple phones. So, yes, Gatis, luck is definitely also a big factor. That is true.
There are no questions that everything was perfect or nothing was understood.
Yes. Gatis, that is true, that you can make a lot of money with shitty code. Fortunately or not, but it is true. Whether it means you have to write shitty code, probably not, but you can sometimes get away with it. And if you can't do better, then hey. Shout out also to Atis for helping me out on the tech details. Hi, Atis. All right. I think, guys, we have an honest time for an honest break then, right?
Yeah, we can do kind of a break with the idea that if any question will show up, then you can answer. And we give 5 minutes from now. So people can give feedback about your talk, and those who didn't give feedback about Edgar's talk can do it as well. And Eric, you can also connect already. If you hear us, I here and here how to pronounce it properly, like hairs and ears. And those sayings about those 5 switches, watch, which watch.
True. All right, I will bow out, but I will be out in the comments if you want to.
No, you can wait for 4 more minutes. Probably something will show up. So.
All right, then we'll just hang out and make jokes.
Yeah, if you can just stay here for 3 minutes. For 3 minutes. If suddenly something comes up, and as we do with Edgar's, if anybody shows up, if anybody gets any question a bit later, they can write you in a direct message, right?
Of course.
There will be some here around, yeah.
But honestly, I think the next talks are also going to be very interesting. So if you have a question, do it now. You'll be busy later.
I just mean if suddenly something comes, this kills this moment, like, oh, or Ventus Romba moment.
All right.